Hello, my name is Doug Sharp, and I will be your host today on the National Leadership Briefing. Thank you so much for joining us. Well, it's an exciting time here in Canada, no doubt. We just came off of our Canada Day celebrations midweek, and now we're rolling right into a key opportunity that we have before us to exercise our influence into the realm of politics and government by participating in the selection of the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. Now, just to be clear, for all of those folks who say, wait a second, Doug, you're always telling me that you're nonpartisan. Well, that's true. I am only interested in what you're interested in. And you told me that the 4 pillars is all you want advanced into society, culture, politics, and government. So I'm on the side of the 4 pillars and on your side. So when it comes to political parties, I tell you, I'm willing to advance your ideas into all of them. It's just that right now, at this moment in time, the Conservative Party of Canada is electing the leader of that party, and that person could become the next Prime Minister of Canada. So we want to be there with our 4 pillars. We want to be there with our ideas, and we want to advance them into that conversation and make sure that our ideas are being considered among the mix of ideas out there. Well, to help you do that, we established a website called conservativeupdate.com, and there you will find videos from all of the candidates. All 4 candidates participated in providing us with videos so that you could get to know them better and understand what they had to say about the 4 pillars. Now, we wanted to make sure, though, that you had all the information, so we invited the candidates to come back on today's briefing. So today, you're going to be spending some time with the candidates again and getting to know a little bit more about that. So get excited about that. That's coming a little bit later in the briefing. But to start off here today, I just wanted to let you know a couple of things. First off, I promised you that we would be launching the brand new, hot off the press, welcome video. Now, the welcome video to the National Leadership Briefing is really important because the way we grow our influence is by growing our numbers. We grow our influence by having more and more of us come together and say, I like the 4 pillars. I think those 4 pillars should be advanced into society, culture, politics, and government, and I'm willing to work to advance them myself. So we come together, we learn, we teach, we train, we drill, and we find out any opportunity that's out there for us to advance these ideas, and then we learn how to do it, and then we just go do it. So we've got that welcome video piece. When we go out and welcome other people to join us on the briefing, that's critically important, that we've got a tool to use. And I wanted to make sure you had a good one. So this is what the geniuses that do these things. It's not me, man. I tell you, there are some people that we've got on the team here that have significant talents when it comes to videos and cobbling things together. We have a video for you now that you are going to be able to download and share with your friends, to just invite them. And really all you have to say in the opening sentence when you're inviting someone is, hey, why don't you have a look at this video? Why don't you let me know what you think about this video? And then why don't you join us on the next National Leadership Briefing? Because there are citizens from all across Canada that are believing in these things, and you can add your voice to ours, and you could actually increase your own influence in the areas that you want to influence, in your community, in your local governments, in your provincial governments or federal governments, wherever you want to have influence, you can advance these ideas because there's all of us standing together. So without further ado, this is the new welcome video that you are going to be able to download starting today from the National Leadership Briefing website. And I'm going to make sure it's included in the post notes that you're going to be receiving by email right after the briefing. Okay, enjoy. In the fall of 2016, a series of surveys went out across the nation to talk to people, centers of influence, people within the churches of Canada, people that were sitting in the pews, parents were receiving them. Many people in the faith community received these surveys and were asked questions about what they felt were the priorities that we needed to focus on moving forward. We asked them what was important to them in their communities. We asked them about the things that we should be supporting and the things that we should be rejecting in the way of ideas out there. But what was interesting to note was when you looked at all of this information and the data that was collected, all of these expressions of concern could be reduced down into 4 silos, or what have come to be known as pillars.
We set aside everything that can divide us. We set aside all of our denominational differences, all of our different political views, all of our different things that could possibly distract us from the things that we unify around. And these are the 4 pillars that we rally around here on the National Leadership Briefing. First, we rally around a common desire and belief that parents have the right to raise their children the way they want. We believe that here on the National Leadership Briefing, that parents in Canada should have the right to raise their children in the same faith tradition, with the same values. They should be able to pass on the things that were passed on to them by their parents freely and without interference from government. So that's the first pillar, that parents should have the right to raise their children the way they want. The second pillar that we rally around on the National Leadership Briefing is that those we elect to serve us in civil government must respect and defend our right of belief and freedom of religion. And that's for all Canadians, that the people that we actually put in the legislatures and in the House of Commons, they must respect our right of belief and defend it, more importantly, when it's under siege or under attack. We don't want another politician being elected to hold a seat in the House of Commons that refuses to stand up against the barrage of attacks that are coming to people of faith in Canada right now. So they must respect and defend our right of belief and freedom of religion. That's the second pillar. Now, the third pillar that we rally around here on the National Leadership Briefing is that the laws and policies that are passed by those elected representatives must provide for the safety and security of the citizens, especially the vulnerable among us. It's important to note that because sometimes, especially lately, politicians have been passing laws and they've been actually not taking into consideration the negative health consequences that those laws will have on the citizens. And even worse, they've been passing very serious laws that have actually put people in harm's way. So at the very least, at the very minimum, the very first box that all legislative proposals and all policy must check is the box that holds high the responsibility to keep vulnerable people within our community safe. That's the third pillar. And the fourth pillar that we rally around here on the National Leadership Briefing is, it is inappropriate for civil government to heap debt upon the backs of our children and future generations. So spending money on us, calling it an investment in our children's future, when really what it is, it's excessive taxation that's going to be placed on the backs of our kids when they're born and as they go through their young adult lives. That's inappropriate. That flat out, that is not fiscal policy that we support here on the National Leadership Briefing. Now, I want you to understand something about these 4 pillars. They came from you. They're your pillars. They're the things that you believe. Now, there's a movement out there in Canada right now, and again, they definitely aren't the majority. They are the vocal minority that believe that your ideas and the things that you hold up as priorities do not have a place. But I can tell you that in our society and in Canada, they do. You're a citizen, you're a constituent, you're a member of the community, you have elected representatives. Those are your ideas and you don't have to justify them, qualify them. They don't even, you know what? An idea doesn't even have to be a good idea to be considered among the mix of ideas that are out there in the government and political landscape. That's the truth of the matter. As citizens, we have the right to put forward ideas. These are the things that we believe in. That is good enough for us. That should be good enough for our elected representatives.
Well, I hope you're as excited as I am that we now have a tool like that to help us invite others to join the briefing. The August briefing, by the way, is going to be amazing. You're not going to want to miss it, and your friends aren't going to want to miss it either. So you can use that tool. Now, if you're looking for something a little shorter, just something to tease people with, I'm also going to be including in the post-briefing notes another video, which is only, I think it's about 59 seconds long. I think that's what it is, 59 seconds long. And you're going to be able to just send that out on Facebook or send it out and just kind of grab a hold of people's attention long enough to let them know about the briefing and then invite them to join us for the August briefing and all the briefings after that. So I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to share it with you. And I look forward to seeing that spread around out there to raise our numbers. Okay. Now, moving along, I want to tell you what else we're going to touch on today before we get to the candidates is I want to talk to you just really, really briefly about the importance of the ballots that are coming in the mail. Now, the ballots are going to be coming in the mail for you to fill out and send back in so your vote can be counted as a member of the Conservative Party of Canada. Now, some of the folks that are on the National Leadership Briefing, and I'm hoping the large majority of you out there took advantage of this opportunity to exercise your influence and actually joined the members, became a member of the Conservative Party of Canada. But if you're not a member and you know you didn't get your membership in time, please still listen up, because this kind of information, we're going to need to review it again and again when we see other opportunities in the future where we can exercise our influence. Now, the number of people that typically participate once they get a ballot in the mail, you're going to be astounded to find this out, that as few as half of the people who receive ballots in the mail to vote in these kinds of elections actually fill them out and send them in. So the influence that you're going to have by filling out your ballot, properly handling it, and sending it in before the deadline, the influence that you're going to have is even higher than you know, because there's a large percentage of people that don't send them in at all. Now, there's a small percentage of people, but believe me, it's significant enough to make a difference, who actually fill out their ballots wrong. They make a mistake in the way they handle the ballots, or actually the way they put the envelopes into the other envelopes, because there's a couple of envelopes you're going to get, and you're going to have to take one envelope and put something in it, and then take that envelope and put it in another envelope. And we're going to get into that in the midweek touch points ahead. We're going to talk about the details of that. But it's very important that you handle your ballot properly, because if you don't, your ballot will be spoiled. And you don't want that, because a spoiled ballot counts for nothing. So everything that we have done up until this point in time is to take full advantage of this opportunity to exercise our influence in a combined way. So if you spoil your ballot because you didn't handle it properly, you're missing out. So we don't want you to miss out. Make sure you pay attention to the upcoming midweek touch points, because we're going to make sure that when you get your ballots, you'll know what to do with it. Now, as far as the timeline goes, you should be receiving your ballot to participate in this election of the leadership candidate for the Conservative Party of Canada. You'll be getting that in the mail within the next 2 weeks. So keep your eye on your post box, because we're going to need to turn it around and get it back into the post, back to the office, the CPC office, the Conservative Party of Canada office, so that they can tally it up and announce the winner on August the 21st. Okay, so just wanted to touch on that and stress the importance of ballot handling, because it is a big issue for folks that with spoiled ballots, and also people not sending their ballots in. Those two problems we're not going to have, because you and I are in relationship. Okay, all right, so let's move along here. I'm so excited about this opportunity that we have. We had such a great time submitting questions from you, for you, on behalf of you through the National Leadership Briefing. But unfortunately, I'm hearing not only our questions, but the questions that you sent in directly. Many of them were not considered and used during the Conservative Party of Canada leadership election debates that happened just this past month. Now, that's understandable. Like, we don't want to go, lighting our hair on fire and being concerned about that, because you only had so much time and they could only use so many questions. So we had unanswered questions. And what you and I both know is that those unanswered questions are not good to have. So we asked the candidates if they'd be willing to just come on the National Leadership Briefing and take a look at some of the concerns that we had that are expressed within these questions, and share whatever it is that they wanted to share about them. And before I introduce the candidates one by one and then let them just share whatever they want to share, I want to first remind you of what the questions are. The ones that we submitted here from the National Leadership Briefing, we had a chance to submit 4 of them, and here they are now, so that you'll be refreshed in your mind as to what it is we'll be listening for later on. Thanks so much. Enjoy these questions, and we will come right back, and I'll introduce you to the leadership election candidates. My name is Doug Sharp, and I'm from British Columbia. In 2010, a former Conservative government published this guide on gender and sexuality, which grants teachers special permissions to engage students while at school on issues of gender and sexuality. Well, right now in the House of Commons, there is a bill, Bill C-8, which works to limit a parent's rights to have those same conversations with their children. My question for the candidates is, who has the ultimate authority to actually decide what is discussed with children while at school? Parents or teachers? My name is Doug Sharp, and I'm from British Columbia. This is my personal copy of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and it's my understanding that as a citizen, that these rights are protected under the Charter and actually protect me from the overreach of government. Yet the Trudeau Liberal government has constantly been attacking my right of belief and freedom of religion. My question for the candidates is that if you are elected, what is it that you are going to do to ensure that my right of belief and freedom of religion is protected? My name is Doug Sharp, and I'm from British Columbia. This small package that could fit into a child's pocket contained 8 10-milligram doses of THC, which is enough to debilitate 6 200-pound men. My question for candidates is, if you are elected, what is it that you are going to do to ensure that this dangerous drug does not end up in the pockets of our children? My name is Doug Sharp, and I'm from British Columbia. It appears as though the Trudeau Liberal government is going to be leaving us with a $250 billion budget deficit and close to $1 trillion in debt. My question for candidates is, what specific things are you going to be doing to ensure that this burden of debt is lifted off of the backs of our children and future generations? Okay, great. So now you've got those fresh in your mind. We're going to start bringing the candidates on, and just what I'll do is I'm going to start with Mr. Aaron O'Toole. Aaron O'Toole's biography is on his website. We're going to include a link to his bio page in the post-briefing notes today. But I do want to say that he's been a member of the Royal Canadian Air Force. He's started charitable foundations to take care of military veterans and their families. He is a sitting member of Parliament. He has worked with the former government of Prime Minister Stephen Harper as a, let me just make sure I've got his titles, Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of International Trade. And then he became the Minister of Veterans Affairs. And we're excited to have Aaron with us today. So let's bring Aaron on. Well, thank you so much, Aaron, for joining us today. We are excited to have you back on the briefing. Thank you for the information that you provided already to the people that we serve here on the National Leadership Briefing. It's good to have you back. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks, Doug. Family's well. We're doing well in the leadership. Canada Day is this week, so celebrating the greatest country in the world. So things are good. We've had a challenging time, and I hope everyone listening, hope their families are healthy and well as well.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear. Thank you, Aaron, and thank you for receiving our questions. Obviously, with the limited or the changes that we've been having here in Canada, with the way that we actually conduct these electoral processes, everything's a little bit different. And the debates gave us an opportunity to, as Canadians, to submit questions to the party so that they would be considered for the debates, but not all the questions got included because there's just only so much time. So thank you for coming back on and taking the time to respond to some of the questions that we've been receiving. You've had an opportunity to review the questions. Why don't I just let you go ahead and share anything you'd like to share in response to those questions that have been posed?
Well, listen, I appreciate the work that Canada Family Action has been doing, because in this busy social media universe, people often don't get as much news as maybe 25, 30 years ago. And particularly as a conservative, I often feel we don't get our work and our positions, our principles expressed fairly through the media. So the work you guys have been doing to educate Canadians about this conservative leadership race, the background of each of the candidates, and their positions on issues, I think it's very important. So thank you. It's smart, effective advocacy. And I've said at the start of this race, I want to unite the Conservative Party, all parts of the party, conservatives that are socially conservative, fiscally conservative, military and property rights libertarians. I'm trying to make sure everyone is reflected and feels part of a movement that's going to take back Canada. I've put some specific policies out that I think are very family focused and friendly, building on the success of the Harper government in that regard. I was proud to be a part of a government that finally allowed parents a little bit of choice in terms of childcare, not talking about decades of government programs and government run childcare before the school system. And I think that's something that appeals to your members. I've also said that I'm a conservative that stands up for the rights of all Canadians, including conscience rights protections, freedom of religion, freedom of expression. Those are as important as any newer rights that may be granted by a court under the Charter. I try and stand up and defend all rights, and sometimes talk about issues that the media would prefer to just move on from. That's not fair. All rights and all Canadians deserve to be heard and respected. I often compare that to my time in the military when I said the uniform we wore symbolized Canada, its institutions, and its rights, not just some of them, all of them. And that's how I've tried to run this leadership race from the beginning. And I hope your members are seeing some of our policy and our approach to these issues. And we're getting great momentum, so I'm optimistic that we can keep the party united, grow our movement, and win the next election.
Fantastic. Well, what I'll do is I'm just going to turn the screen on to you. And if you want to get right into the specifics of the questions, then I will step into the background here and feel free to speak directly to those people that we serve.
Sure. Well, thanks, Doug. The key questions asked by Canada Family Action are core to me as a conservative, as a husband, a father, a veteran, parliamentarian. And so let me go through them. First is the right to raise your children in your religious faith, your belief, and the way you can instill morals and life lessons in the way you see fit. That's fundamental to our society and must be respected. I think we have a country with an incredible track record of freedom and people with multiple faith backgrounds and cultural backgrounds, and we should allow people to have that freedom to raise their children, particularly in their faith perspective, which is fundamental to the identity of a person. And so I certainly support that, and I've stood up for that as a member of Parliament, particularly when the Liberals started to impose value screens on things like the Canada Summer Jobs program. You already saw the creeping nanny state of the Liberal Party, and I fought against that in the House. Second, freedom of belief and conscience and religion is fundamental to our country. It's a fundamental freedom that reaches back to the Magna Carta. It's older than Canada itself, and it's one of the fundamental freedoms that I stand up for consistently. I've said that throughout my public life, and in my platform, I've said I would protect conscience rights protections for healthcare workers. I would recreate the Office for Religious Freedom, a great office created by Stephen Harper that shone the light on the right of religion both around the world, but also reminded it of us of that right at home. Ambassador Bennett did a great job. I would recreate that position, I think, to re-emphasize the importance of that principle. The third, how can we look at public policies and a government that looks at vulnerable populations? I'm very proud to have a policy in my document called Great Country. It takes from a quote from Sir John A. Macdonald that we're the greatest country in the universe, provided we don't suffer our nation to become divided. I want to make sure that we help the vulnerable, and often Ottawa doesn't know best. So the Great Country Initiative will actually set up a series of grant programs for faith communities, service clubs, volunteer associations to help tackle needs within their community, whether it's someone fleeing violence, whether it's hunger, whether it's homelessness. I found, Doug, that in my own time as an MP and as someone that raised money in the private sector for some of these causes, the groups that often started the first food bank, they were called Daily Bread Food Bank. I wonder why. It was started by a faith organization. The women's shelter in my community that was opened, Bethesda House, was first opened by parishioners of my church, St. Joseph's in Bowmanville, including my parents who were very involved. So the fact that Liberals are trying to exclude groups that have centuries of track record working with the vulnerable really upsets me. I'm going to put them back at the forefront. government should be a funding partner. We shouldn't have an Ottawa knows best approach like we see with the Liberals. And finally, your concerns about the debt on our children and our grandchildren is also a fundamental issue for me in this race. As I said, as we were setting up, my son Jack turned 9 last week. My daughter Molly turns 14 in July. I'm in politics and public life for them. And I want to make sure we give our children the richest, freest, most respected country in the world. And all of those things are eroding under Justin Trudeau. So we have to not only get government expenditures down and tackle our fiscal deficit, we also have to tackle our jobs and investment deficit that Justin Trudeau's created. His anti-pipeline policies, Bill C-69, some of his direct actions have hurt people and families, their well-being, whether in the oil patch, the forestry sector of British Columbia, the auto working families in Ontario who saw the last car roll off the line in December at GM. In my own community, I grew up, my dad worked at GM. So tackling that deficit, making sure we don't get an out of control debt crisis while also relaunching the private sector. That's in my rebuilding plan. So Doug, I invite all of your members to go to aaronotoole.ca, check out my platform. It's called Our Country, a call to take back Canada. We will rebuild our economy post-COVID, including tackling debt. We will restore our international reputation, which has been sullied around the world by Justin Trudeau's preening selfie image and letting down our allies like Israel at the UN. And then it will provide real help for some of the vulnerable Canadians suffering after COVID, and particularly small businesses and seniors who I think will need continued support in the next few years. Very proud of the plan, proud of the team that's coming around me, and I hope with support of many of your members, we'll work hard to take back Canada from Justin Trudeau and the Liberals.
Well, thank you so much, Aaron, and I will definitely include links to those pages on your website where they can see your plan. And I just know that on the road ahead, the immediate road ahead, where this is going, obviously to Election Day, we want you to know that we are praying blessing over you and protection over you and your family, and we are just looking forward to seeing you prosper on the road ahead. Thank you so much again for your time today, Aaron.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you for your prayers and good wishes. And I look forward to eventually getting back on the road. But until then, best wishes of health and blessings on your members.
Thank you. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Okay, the next candidate that we're going to be hearing from today and certainly welcome here to the National Leadership Briefing is Mr. Derek Sloan. Just a couple of things. Again, we're going to include the link to Derek's bio page on his website, but he is a member of Parliament for Hastings, Lennox, and Addington in Eastern Ontario. He's a lawyer, a husband, a father. He worked on the Trinity Western case that obviously we covered extensively, and he's encouraging MPs to participate and debate on all the issues, on any issue that comes up. He doesn't want to lay down any sort of restrictions on the conversation at all, but there's one line on his bio page I do want to share. It says, Derek is standing for leadership because our country is under siege by a tide of political correctness that seeks to destroy Canada, and he knows that the quickest way to lose such a war is to pretend you're not in one. So I just loved how that was worded, so I want to share that with you. So let's bring Derek on. Okay, well, thank you so much, Derek, for joining us today on the National Leadership Briefing. We appreciate you being with us.
Very glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, things have sure changed in Canada, especially with political processes. I mean, here we are in a first of. We've never seen this before, where we're speaking to leadership candidates for a political party who could possibly become the next Prime Minister of Canada, and we're doing it all on Zoom. So thanks for taking the time. Now, you've had a chance to review the questions that we submitted to the debate process within the Conservative Party of Canada. We understand, obviously, and on the National Leadership Briefing, and the people that we serve understand that not all of the questions get answered. So again, we appreciate you taking the time to come on and looking at these specific questions and sharing whatever you would like to share in response to those questions. So feel free to just take your time today and say whatever you'd like to say, Derek. We're just happy that you're with us today.
Okay, well, that sounds great. I'd be happy to do that. So with respect to the first question on parental rights and parental authority, the integrity of the family is one of the key foundations on which our society is built. And I will defend parental sovereignty against any and all radical left-wing or other legislation that undermines it. Parents should be able to raise their children the way they want, free from state interference. And I will oppose the promotion of radical sex education against the wishes of parents. I will repeal Bill C-16, which enshrines gender ideology. It promotes the type of thing that we're seeing in BC with that poor father who has no control over what's going on with his daughter, and she's subjected to all kinds of medical experiments that will change her for the rest of her life. And unfortunately, she'll never be able to have biological children of her own. And that type of thing is really child abuse. And the other bill that really gets under my skin is Bill C-8. And this has to do with what the government calls conversion therapy. And it's really misnamed. The true conversion therapy is where we are subjecting our children to hormone replacement therapy, to surgical transitioning. That is a true conversion therapy. And I would ban that. I'm the only candidate that has said I would ban these sex change operations for kids under 18. And the reason why is because as you and I both know, kids go through a lot of different phases. They're subject to influence by their peers, and sometimes they don't know up from down. And the data shows this. We know that of all the kids that present with gender dysphoria or feel that they're a different gender than what they've actually been born, over 80% of them will grow out of that by the time they reach adulthood. So to think that the government would be pushing kids along the track to getting these invasive surgeries and medical treatments when 4 out of 5 of them will identify with the body that they were born with by the time they hit puberty, that is very troubling. And we're seeing gender dysphoria on the rise. It's at least 7 or 8 times higher than it was even a decade ago in terms of the number of kids that are going through this. It is not something that can be explained away by genetics or something like that. There is something happening in society that is causing these kids to come forward and identify this way. So not only am I against Bill C-8, I would make it illegal to surgically operate or put a child through these puberty blocking treatments. It is something that is, I haven't met a real parent on the street, regardless of whether they're liberal or conservative, that agrees with it. And it's something that we can win with if we present this to the population. And I'm ashamed that certain other candidates in this race have either outright criticized my stance on this, and others have been mum or nearly mum on the issue. And unfortunately, that is a shame. I would also add on that particular issue, my wife and I have decided to send our kids to a local Christian school. And for those parents who decide to do that, they need to have the right to be able to do that, whether it's homeschooling or sending to a school that reflects their values. And that's something that I will always stand up for. And to move into the second question, which had to do with freedom of religion and freedom to believe, I got into politics for the very reason of protecting our freedoms. I didn't grow up wanting to be a politician. I grew up wanting to be a business owner. I owned my own business for several years. I was in the private sector for many years. And I've always been a conservative in the sense that I was irritated by government waste, but I never made that step to get involved until I saw that the government was doing more than just wasting our money. They were picking sides, and they were coming after those who didn't believe the same way they did. So that is why I got into politics. I initially thought that I would be a religious liberty lawyer. I worked with an intervening group in favor of Trinity Western University in 2015. Mm-hmm. I know personally, and I'm close friends with many of the preeminent religious liberty lawyers in the country, such as Barry Bussey, Grace McIntosh, Derek Ross, Jay Cameron, just to name a few. And if I haven't named someone that in no way lessens my respect for them. Freedom of conscience and religious liberty are the most important liberties that we have. Stephen Harper was great. So his government intervened on behalf of Trinity Western. I will always intervene in any case that impacts religious liberty and fight in favor of it. I will require provinces to create and respect freedom of conscience for medical workers when it comes to euthanasia and abortion. even for referrals. And I have a great plan to protect freedom of speech on campus. Our universities will be bastions of free inquiry, or they will not be funded by the federal government. I have a great plan to stop the banning of Christians and conservatives on social media. So stay tuned for that. I mentioned it in the debate as well. So, you know, and I'm discouraged by the fact that many provinces shut down our churches, where, you know, liquor stores and marijuana stores were allowed to open. Abortion, of course, was fully available during this time. When it comes to marijuana, I have the most aggressive plan to deal with illicit drugs. I believe that we should raise the age nationwide to 25 years for people to be able to use marijuana. Obviously, we can have medical exceptions, but it shouldn't be legal for someone under 25 years to be able to use it. Science shows that the brain develops until about 25 years. And I have the most aggressive plan out of all the candidates to deal with it. I have a great plan when it comes to pro-life issues, and you can view that on my website. I have a 12-point plan, which I believe to be the most comprehensive pro-life plan that has been put forward in modern times by a candidate. And you can read about it on my website, dereksloan.ca/pro-life. When it comes to the question on fiscal responsibility and debt, it is inappropriate and immoral for the government to continue to spend money that we don't have, so that our children and their children will inherit crushing debt. So we need to start balancing the budget now. I'm going to start by immediately cutting Trudeau's ideologically driven funding for things like foreign abortions, the World Health Organization, and his media bailout. Those three things alone cost $2.2 billion. There's many other left-wing special interest groups that are funded. There's groups such as LEAF, Planned Parenthood, eco-radical groups such as the Climate Action Network, Make Way, which was formerly known as Tides Canada. These are the types of things we shouldn't be spending our money on. When it comes to an economic recovery, part of being responsible with our money is, yes, spending less of it, but we also need to bring in more by growing the economy. There is no recovery for the economy without getting our energy and natural resource sector back on track. I'm the only candidate who will be withdrawing Canada from the Paris Agreement, which has as its aspirational goal essentially to shut down our energy industry. It wants us to be energy neutral sometime in the latter part of this century. And many UN ideas and things of this nature serve to undermine our sovereignty. Without getting Canada back on track in this fashion, we won't be able to move forward. And I will go to the wall to defend these beliefs. And I don't care what happens. If I have to sacrifice my very career, I will do so. You can count on me. I've taken a lot of heat during this campaign for the things that I've said, but I'm not backing down, and I'll never apologize for standing up for these foundational beliefs in Canadian society. Thank you, and God bless.
Derek, thank you. Thank you for I mean, I've been on the campaign trail, and I know the sacrifices that all candidates make, but especially leadership candidates. It's very taxing. We want you to know, Derek, I'm letting all of the candidates know this, that through our prayer networks and the people that we are working with here through the National Leadership Briefing, conservativeupdate.com, and Canada Family Action, we are praying for you. We're praying for you and your family and for your children. And we want you to know that we're praying for safety and for prosperity and for security throughout this whole process, and good health, because we know it's very hard on your physical self as well. But I thank you today, Derek. Thank you for taking the time to come on. An unanswered question during an electoral cycle is something none of us like, and you took the time to come back and answer some questions for us. We appreciate that.
Just glad to do it. Thank you for having me.
God bless. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Okay, well, our next leadership candidate for the Conservative Party of Canada, someone who could become the next Prime Minister of Canada, is Dr. Leslyn Lewis. And Dr. Leslyn Lewis, I'm going to be again providing the link to her biographical information on her website. However, just a couple of points here. Dr. Lewis emigrated to Canada from Jamaica at the age of 5 years old. She is a lawyer. She has a master's in environmental studies from York University. Leslyn Lewis also has a PhD in law from Osgoode Hall. She has a clear record of success, it says here on her website, as a mother, a lawyer, a teacher, and a community advocate. And she notes on her website that she's not a career politician. She's a mother who's been given much by this country and by hardworking parents. And she wants the next generation to succeed. So let me introduce you to Dr. Leslyn Lewis. Well, thank you, Dr. Lewis. We sure appreciate you joining us today. It is a pleasure to meet you. This is the first time you and I have actually connected one-on-one. I know we've been in the same virtual rooms before, but it's nice to actually finally connect with you one-on-one and give the people that we serve another opportunity to get to know you better. Thank you also for the videos that your campaign submitted to the conservativeupdate.com website. They are valuable resources and will greatly help the people that we serve make an informed choice as to who will be the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. But we're excited to hear from you today, so I'm going to stop talking. You've had an opportunity to review the questions and understand what we're all about here at the National Leadership Briefing, the 4 pillars. And so I just would really like to just turn it over to you, Dr. Lewis, and invite you to share whatever you'd like at this point. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for this opportunity to be here with you and share my platform on the 4 pillars. The first pillar is parental authority, and I believe that families are the primary building block of society, and they are a prerequisite for a healthy society. And I believe that parents have the right to raise their children in accordance with their personal beliefs and their values. And I believe that government should not interfere with that authority, and they should honor and respect the authority of parents over their children. And as such, I would implement a national parental rights bill, which would allow parents to have a say in the consultation of their minor children for medical procedures and in education, even though these particular areas are governed by provincial jurisdiction. I would also repeal Bill C-8 and Bill C-16 because I also believe that they interfere with parental authority. I believe that parents love children and that governments do not have the capacity to love children, and as such should not alienate children from their parents. The second issue that I wish to focus on is just fundamental freedoms. I believe that civil governments must respect and defend our fundamental freedoms. This includes our freedom of religion, freedom of conscience, freedom of expression. And I have seen pastors and parents all over this country very concerned about the fact that they would lose their charitable status and that they will be judged for their beliefs. Canadians also have told me that they feel compelled in their speech, that they feel that they cannot speak freely and that their speech has been legislated. I'm also concerned about canceled culture, and I believe that we have the best country in the world. Although it is not perfect, we can celebrate our human frailties, our mistakes, and our successes. I'm also concerned about universities and the suppression of free speech in universities. And I believe that if we do not find a way to resolve that the federal government will have to withhold funding from particular universities who do not uphold freedom of speech. The third concern is one of drugs. I'm very concerned about drugs and its impact on our young people. We need to keep dangerous and addictive drugs off the streets and away from our young people. And that's why I oppose the movement of defunding the police. I feel that it's important that we give the police sufficient resources to crack down on gangs, on drug trafficking, and we should ensure that children are not exposed to drugs, especially even drugs like marijuana, where their brains are still developing till 25 years old. I oppose the legalization and the extension of other drugs, as Justin Trudeau has hinted at. And I believe that we should equip our law enforcement officers to crack down on drug dealers and who are preying on our children and our communities. The final issue that I wish to touch on is debt. I'm opposed to excessive taxation, and I do not believe that governments should heap debt on future generations. In times of prosperities like we've seen in the last 5 years, government should have been operating in a surplus situation. We need to develop our economy now so that we can pay down on our debt and come out of COVID strong. And that means that we have to implement practical solutions that will cut red tape, find efficiencies within government, simplify our tax code, and provide incentives for small businesses to do well. I also believe that we need to build a strong nation based on Canada First principles that will provide a strong economy so that we can phase out our deficit. Even though this will be a long-term goal, we should aim to produce more and come off of being a consumer society to a production society, which means we will up our production, stimulate small and medium-sized businesses, get them to take more of a chance, and hire more people. We also need to make sure that our essential supply chains are intact and that we provide manufacturers with incentives to provide essential products for us, such as gloves and masks and respirators, so that we're never caught off guard again. We also need to support our manufacturing, our agriculture, and our food processing sectors to make sure that they're strong and self-sufficient. I also feel we need to invest in our natural resources and our pipelines and create jobs and implement enabling legislation that will facilitate and encourage businesses, repeal damaging legislation such as Bill 48 and Bill C-69, and bring businesses back to Canada to invest in a strong economy.
Well, thank you, Dr. Lewis. It's an extensive plan, and we just sure appreciate hearing the details. But I know there's so much more that just time won't allow for us to cover today. So what I'm going to do is I'll make sure that in our post-briefing notes today, that there's a direct link to your website that gives more details about your plan and also provides people with a little bit more information about you. And I'm sure there's a contact link there so they can share questions directly to you. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. There is a contact link, and they can send their questions to vote@leslinlewis.ca, and we respond to all questions. And we will be doing Zoom calls over the process too, so look out for the Zoom calls in your area.
Fantastic. Well, thank you again for joining us today. It's been a pleasure meeting you, and I look forward to seeing you on the campaign trail ahead. Bye for now.
Okay, thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Bye for now.
God bless.
Okay, well, that was fantastic. It was great to hear from the candidates today. Now, that's all of the candidates that we have that we are able to introduce you to today. Mr. Peter MacKay, unfortunately, his campaign team could not connect with him to make arrangements to join us today on the briefing. However, if we do have an opportunity again in the future to get in touch with him, we'll definitely share his information as well. Moving forward here, though, as we're just looking down the home stretch here of the briefing today, I did want to add just a couple of things just to ensure that we're all on the same page here. I mentioned during the last national leadership briefing the importance of us remaining focused on national initiatives here in Canada when we have an opportunity to exercise our influence on a national scale like we are with the election of a leader of a major federal political party. We cannot forget that there is much influence that we can exercise locally in our own city. So we had such a great response to our invitation to open up a conversation with leaders in cities. On our last briefing, I asked if anybody had an interest in expanding the influence that they have in their own city to get in touch with me by email. So many people got in touch with me. I fear that I have actually let some of you down and not gotten back to you. So what I'm going to do is in the post-briefing notes today, if you are someone who feels called to take a leadership role in your city, in your community locally, and you feel as though you're someone that could be a catalyst for bringing people together, rallying them around the things that you believe in, I'm going to ask you to go to the post-briefing notes. To the bottom of the post-briefing notes, you're going to see where I'm going to be giving you an audio recording of training that a gentleman by the name of Dennis Peacock has done. It is the first lesson in a series of lessons that he did as part of a series called The Destiny of Nations, Establishing city action councils. So I want to share that one link with you and encourage you, go to that link, listen to this first hour, get a feel for what it is that why we're moving in this direction and what it's all about. And then I invite you to send me an email. Please, let's do this again. Once you've listened to that first message, send me an email, because then you and I are going to get on the phone together and we're going to start working on transforming your city. The nation of Canada is transformed by what happens in the cities. So we are going to be focusing on expanding our influence at the local level. So please be watching out for that. Also, I'm going to be sharing something that we call the Personal Network Survey. Now, it's a real simple document. When you download it in the post-briefing notes after the briefing today, you're going to see just how simple this is. But what it is, they are 4 questions that you can ask people around you in your orbit to find out if they are aligned with your views and values, and someone who you can connect with and ally with on the road ahead to advance the 4 pillars. They're very simple questions, like I say, but if you ask these 4 questions to anybody around you, you're going to know if they should be somebody that should be on the next briefing, and also somebody that you want to stay in touch with and serve when you see opportunities to expand your influence locally. So the Personal Network Survey will also be included. Finally, the last thing that I want to point out to you today is that I'm just going to do something. I'm just going to share something that's kind of interesting. We do this from time to time. I got no vested interest in this, but I identified something quite interesting in this book that I found in chapters a while ago. It's called 21 Things You May Not Know About the Indian Act. Now, a gentleman by the name of Bob Josephs wrote this book a while ago, and it has gone straight to the top of the charts because it's a very interesting read. Now, I'm not advocating on one way or the other or any particular thing in the book, but I do suggest that you actually read it, because there are in this book, there are 21 things you may not know about the Indian Act that I found very, very interesting. Now, what's most interesting about it, beyond just the historical information that I had no idea, there's so many things I had no idea about, but there's some striking similarities in the way that the government overreached or was overreaching in their power and authority with the first peoples of our nation. There's similarities between that and what we're experiencing today. And so I'm not going to draw any conclusions for you, but if you do pick up this book, I'm sure that you'll find some very interesting things about what the governments have done of the past, and that there's nothing new under the sun, it would appear, because governments still seem to want to overreach beyond their sphere of authority and beyond their jurisdictional limits of their authority into the lives of people they should not be reaching into their lives. So please feel free to pick up this book on your own, available at Chapters Indigos, I guess that's where I got mine, and I'm sure you'll find that very interesting. So that's all I want to do for today. We'll just leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us for today's briefing. I strongly encourage you to invite as many people as you can to register at the NLBCanada.ca website, and make sure that they are registered for the next briefing, because August's briefing we're going to be presenting some things that are brand new, and it's also the final stretch of the conservativeupdate.com campaign that we've had, and we are about to exercise a tremendous amount of influence into the process, which is going to identify the next leader of that party. Again, someone who could become the next Prime Minister of Canada. We definitely want to be there. So in the meantime, until then, we shall see you on the weekly touch points, but just know that here at the National Leadership Briefing, we will be praying blessing for you, for your family, and continue to pray for our great nation of Canada. Bye for now.